Allow me now to introduce to you a man who needs very little introduction. Right Reverend Dr. Sheldon Mwesigwa, Bishop of Ankole Diocese and Chancellor of Bishop Stewart University in Mbarara, Uganda.
Thank you very much. The speakers of Parliament here, the guest of honor who is representing the office of the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, deputy speakers, Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, different distinguished guests in your respective capacities, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor this is to rub shoulders with parliamentarians. Where I stayed in the hotel, they were addressing me as Honorable Bishop. Yes. And normally when religious leaders come to our side, they say the protocol in church, we are not sure. So also here, I'm not sure, but I'm so glad I'm here. Many people have welcomed you to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. I will welcome you to Uganda, the heart of Africa. If Africa was a human being, you just hold your hand here, you will find Uganda there, the map of Africa. You are welcome, and I want to welcome the conference, to appreciate the conference convener and the team that has organized this, and for having thought it wise to include religious leadership representation. By the way, that is excellent, unbelievable. I will explain why. Most of the agendas that are being driven, social, economic, otherwise, which are driven by the Western world, do not give cognizance to religion for obvious reasons. But for you parliamentarians who have thought it wise, it's exceptionally good. Thank you so much. And I would dare say, if you ignore religion in Africa, you do so at your own peril, because it is one of the most driving forces in Africa. Recently I was in Ethiopia. I was given a lift, not a lift, I hired a taxi to go to a conference on coffee. Our diocese is involved in trying to address issues of employment and whatever. And the Ethiopian guy who drove me, of course his English was not as good, but he said, in conversing, he said, I can die for my religion. This is not a bishop, this is not a priest. He's saying, I can die for my religion. So, thank you for the religious perspective. Safeguarding African children and families from external influence, the religious perspective. What is the family and who are children? I'll deal with that a bit and see how we can do safeguard and conclude. Family consists of two or more individuals who are related by blood, and there are different types of families: marriage, holy matrimony, where you can have some other members of the family, some may be adopted, and you know how families in Africa are so big. There are other forms of legal or society ties that we have. And we belong to so many families. Personally, by testimony, I was raised by my mother, so mine was a female-headed family, you would call it. And by God's grace, I was able to grow up, and now I also have a family. And the family I have a wife, Dr. Alice, who sends greetings, and children. We have a WhatsApp group. They are now aware of what is going on, and they are keyed in. That's what a family is about. A child, if you talk about children, may vary in our definitions, but the underlying principle is that children are young individuals in need of protection, nurturing, and opportunities for health development to reach their full potential. They are being looked after to grow. And Uganda's constitution, 1995, would refer to all those under 18 as children, one would say. There are some young adults. In church we say 0 to 12 are children, 12 to 18 to 17 would be young adults, but 18 is the age where one can even marry or get married. Some statistical representation. Between 2015 and 2030, the number of children under 18 in sub-Saharan Africa will rise from 496 million to 661 million. Think about that, children. And the Bible says, where your heart is, where your treasure is, there is your heart. Luke 12, 30 something. Where your treasure is, there is your heart. Is our heart on the children and the youth, since they are this much? In our planning, in our parliaments, from 2026 onwards, sub-Saharan Africa will be the single most important region, the single region with the greatest number of children under 18. In 2021, there were around 207 million children aged 0 to 4 years in Africa. In total, the population aged 17 years and younger amounted to approximately 650 million. Think about those statistics. What do they mean? It means we are producing. And if we are producing, we need to think seriously about those. I liked the presentation of Heck, who said he has 6 children. For me, with my wife, we had a big debate. We ended up with 4. But in Europe, to get someone with 6 children, he deserves a big credit. And I really liked his presentation. He said, Africa is the last continent standing, and I agree greatly. I studied in UK for about 3-4 years, and I studied the English society. And him being here is exceptional, and I thank God for it. I left England after my PhD when I still had 1 year on my visa. And when I came back, some of my colleagues said, this young man, what's wrong with him? There must be something wrong in his head. But I purposed to come back. Why? There were 3 reasons. 1, I had my children all there with my wife. They were starting to say they are going to introduce sex change. They send a letter, they say, now end of term. Mr. So-and-so, next term is going to come as Miss So-and-so. He's going to undergo sex change. Me, I had to take off. I couldn't get my children there in UK. No. 2, the cold weather. 3, being underlooked. Even when I was studying, I had a PhD, children would look up, down upon you, and, oh my. Some of these people are really, but I thank God for the people of his kind who are very positive. And there are so many, by the way, brothers and sisters. So many. I follow world events. I follow American politics. There are so many like him. So many like him. We thank God for this collaboration. Legal framework. I will not go to the legal framework because mine is the religious, but there is some data there to show what African countries are doing to protect the family. In 2004, African Union came up with a plan of action on the family to improve the quality of life of all families, and all the different countries are listed there with efforts. What does it mean to safeguard children and family? The protective measures and strategies aimed at preserving the well-being, cultural identity, and values of African children and families from outside influences that may pose risks or challenges. And what do these include? There is cultural imperialism, foreign ideologies. There are so many when you come to think about them. And some of them are very subtle. Many of us, for example, love soccer. Arsenal, Manchester. I know, you hear them. If you hear, do you know the impact of this on our youth in terms of even work? When I go to schools, I tell these young people, the guys you are watching on the screen, you know how much money they pull in? How much for you do you have in your pocket? Sports betting, I don't know whether Honorable Pende has jumped on to betting. But betting, the other day I read the newspaper, whereby a medical student, 4th year, Makerere University, was confessing he had become a victim of sports betting. That means he's going to bet with people's lives when he becomes a doctor. Those influences, there are many. The Hollywood influence, the films we watch, even us here, probably. The subtle influences, there are so many. They affect us and our children. We need to rethink. Reverend Rukundo, for him, he challenges me. I came with him, he says, for me, I don't have a television in my home. I only have books, they read, and they read so many books. I haven't reached his level, but he is very aware of what is happening. Economic exploitation or social pressures that may undermine African traditional values and practices. Why? We need to maintain the integrity of African communities and ensure that children grow up in environments that support their holistic development while respecting their cultural heritage and identities. I know our cultures also have some negative elements. I have not addressed those. We do have some. But let's go to the religious perspective. Upholding positive traditional values, moral teachings, and spiritual practices. Train a child the way he should go, so that when he grows, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22, verse 6. We need to train up our children. The school curriculum, very, very important. When I went to study in the UK, I did my research on, it was the time when moral education was being introduced in Uganda. Can you imagine moral education? If you do a study of moral education, it is aimed at personal preference, as opposed to Christian values or even Islamic religious values. But sadly, in Africa, we don't respect research. Even when I came back with my research, I shared it with the National Curriculum Development Center. I did my research on multi-religious pluralism and the teaching of religion in Uganda schools. And many of us, even parliamentarians, I bet you know what is being taught even in our schools in religion. I doubt, because some of the curriculum there actually promotes some negative tendencies, superiority over other people of some kind. Go and read. I will not tell you what is there. Also, African Christian marriage versus Western Christian marriage. I want to explain this. We have done some research, Bishop Stewart University, I have the team. In our region of Ankole, which is neighbors, Honorable Bahati's, Chigezi is where revival started from, 1935. Then it came to Ankole. The region of Ankole, former Ankole, we have about 800 couples who have made 50 years and above in holy matrimony, man and woman. About 800 couples in a region, you can call it the Bible Belt in the US. But the interesting thing, our Christianity, we need to kind of domesticate it and help it to address our issues. Because now we are getting westernized Christianity, which is affecting our values, including the family. Because I visited the US. When you meet someone in the US, an older person, you ask him, your wife, how long have you been married? He tells you, 10 years. You say, but you are old. He tells you, this is my fourth wife. So in the US, the Christians we relate with, they do what they call serial monogamy. which is worse than the polygamy in Africa. Because in Africa, a man marries 3 women and they are there under one household. Actually, when they do even research, they found that HIV incidence was low among Muslims, interestingly, which is a challenge to us Christians of monogamy. You get it? But the English, they do serial monogamy. Marry, chase away. So, African Christianity, we need also to embrace some values and not go by Western, because some churches in Uganda have started this Westernized Christianity form of marriage, where you marry and send away. And some things we don't do. Emphasis on the importance of protecting children from harmful influences, sports betting, I mentioned it, sexual abuse, Hollywood. Your children. By the way, most of us, we don't converse with our children. I know they are listening to me. I chat with my children. I remember when they were at university, I would go chat to them. Try to find out what are they watching. What do they will tell you about Kim Kardashian, about Lady Gaga. Do you know those people? Do you know them? The people they are following. The Western influence has eaten us to the core. If you don't know, how do you guide them? How do you assist them? Africans have a tendency to keep children away at an arm's length. They are there to be heard, not to be listened to. Rather, they are there to be seen, but not to be heard. Dangerous. Get near your children. Alcohol and drug culture. Most of this, almost all, alcohol was here in Africa before the whites. Not so. But we are told alcohol was not even as misused as it is now. But the Western world has transformed it and changed it and put it at another level of advanced. The advertising world. We need to be very careful about the advertising world. I tell people, one time, one of my young children, I think now he's listening. When he was young, they were advertising condoms in our local language. Condoms. Akapira kalina Gomez. The way they were talking about it very nicely. This rubber that protects the body. And my young boy of about 6 years, I need it. You see how the influence comes in? I need it, even before you know what it is about. Coca-Cola. The other day, my boy in senior 3 was telling me, do you know what, Dad? Coca-Cola, the boy who runs fastest at our school takes Coca-Cola. Why? Because when they are advertising, they get this, the greatest runner, Coca-Cola. Oh my. Do we think about some of these things? We need to be careful. The LGBTQI, which needs no mention. We need to safeguard our children. Content on TV, parliamentarians. I think in Uganda, the last time I checked, they were talking about local content being like 75% or something. What is it that they are watching on television? Can we make sure the content is also assessed? Cartoons. The last time I checked, they had said Nickelodeon was about to bring in homosexual couples. These seemingly innocent cartoons, most of you say, I'm going away. You get the TV. You look for the channel for children. Do you know the cartoons for children, what they are? The images that are on them. Preservation of positive culture and religious identity. May God help us to see. We need to encourage strong family bonds. Let's have strong family bonds. Let's be near our children, our families. Parental guidance, very important. I'm a teacher. One of the last titles they didn't mention. I'm now an associate professor by God's grace. I teach, I lecture, but I taught for 25 years in government schools. And I was a priest, but also a teacher. I've dealt with young people. And there is nothing as encouraging as a parent being near to children and being near them and talking to them and guiding them. Parental guidance and community support networks, we need those. In Africa, Professor Mbiti said, I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. The community matters more than the individual. The Western philosophy is based on a model of the individual being supreme, and it arises from a French philosopher, René Descartes, who says, it is from, I think, French, cogito ergo sum, which means I think, thus I am. I think, thus I am. So, whatever you want to do, what does it concern you? The other day I saw in England, men got bicycles and women, they were riding through the streets of England naked. Old men and old women, because it pleases them. What do you have to do with that for you? Why is it troubling you? But in Africa, would you do that? I think, thus I am. That is the philosophical ground on which the Western philosophy runs. That's why now in US, they say children as young as 6, as 4, can decide to say, I feel I'm not, although I'm a woman, I'm not a woman. I'm not a girl. I want to be a man. And they will take you, the government pays for you, they change your sex there and then. In Uganda, we are about to review our canons. And one of the things we are going to address is that marriage is between man and woman who are anatomically and biologically male or female. Because now, definition of men and women has changed. So you can no longer just say between man and woman. There is something missing. Educating families about potential threats being caused by external influences. So for that bit, I think fairly, if we can try to safeguard through you, the parliamentarians, you are the door lock, you are the entry point of safeguarding us in a way. We want to appreciate what you are doing, promotion of the family. I want to appreciate Ugandan MPs for standing firm on the issue of homosexuality. Honorable Bahati, yes, please clap hands for them. Because actually I think Uganda took the lead, more or less. Didn't it? Uganda on issues of religion, even people died for their faith here. You may need to visit Uganda Matters and understand their history. So we thank God that many countries have continued. Ghana, Nigeria, I think those who did it long ago, and that kind. Let us protect family. And in my conclusion, I would like to make a small commercial. I have a book here. In my thinking, if you want to understand about Uganda, this book can help you. Uganda's educational, religious, political, and socio-economic tapestry. It has articles on different aspects of Uganda, which I've written I wrote for 15 years, and touches on almost every topic, including family. And one of my pet topics is the one about marriage, the 800 couples who have made 50 years and above. The oldest couple in Uganda in marriage has made 77 years in marriage. Yes, they belong to the category of born again called East African Revival. We even have a museum in Ankole, which you can visit. Do research and you will see it. And the book costs 50,000 Uganda shillings. May the Lord God bless you. Thank you.